Hello, beautiful humans. You are here to think out loud with me. I'm Natalie Peterson, casting in from my little neck of the woods in northern Colorado to you in yours, wherever and whenever that might be. This little digital adventure that I am on is my solution of turning years of internal chatter, wondering, silent suffering, and physical and mental close calls into enlightening and empowering conversations with others. And I have a return guest today for my episode because we didn't get enough of each other the first time that we talked. I would like everyone to welcome back Wendy Cocke, my guest from episode 42 way back in August. Does anybody remember August? It was hot as hell. And I think I recall that it was hot as hell that day when we visited. And today I was just sharing that I turned on my heater for the very first time. So a little bit has changed since the last time we were together. Say hi, Wendy Cocke, to my listeners, and what's been going on in your neck of the woods.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's cold here in Georgia too today. As I was saying before we got on, it hasn't crossed 70 degrees all week. We were down in the 40s and it is too early for that. I am not ready for winter. Where did fall go? The answer is nowhere. That's what it looks like in fall in Georgia, right?
Do the leaves change?
They do.
Yeah.
And then they fall down just like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But right now they're holding on for dear life because it's supposed to be back in the early 80s, like mid 80s next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. All just holding on.
The leaves here have been absolutely gorgeous this year. I was driving the other night after parent-teacher conferences. I was driving home and the wind was rushing through and the cars were driving, and the wind, I think, had picked up just enough to really give the trees a shake. And it was like a snow, like one of those snow globes, but with leaves, and they were just everywhere. It was like, wow, hooray.
I love it. Yeah, we have a bunch of Japanese maples in our yard and they all turn red. And so when it rains down, it's like this just blanket of red silk across my whole yard. I love it.
I love it. Well, I'm glad to have you back. We decided that when we were together in August for the first time that we had way too much to talk about to contain in one cast. And so we have bumped along with the summer and come into fall, and now we're back again. When you and I were together our first go round, we dug into Making Flex Work, one of your bestsellers, and we talked a load about what it means to redefine work-life balance, to redefine life with work in it. And we talked about, as we were calling it, the 3 B's, all the B's, the boundaries, the balance, the burnout, and really truly what it means to make flex work, right? I'm sorry, that's one of your books too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That is the one.
That's the one.
I'm all over the place.
We talked exactly about the book. Look at that.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Happy Friday. So today we are digging into another bestseller of yours, and I'm excited to talk to you about what it means to reimagine your work. And I'd like to just give a nibble kind of as some context. I'm going to start the backstory around this and then bring everybody back into the know with a little bit from the actual cover. Talk about you in third person, if you don't mind, here for a second.
That's fine.
So Wendy grew up being told she could be anything, and learned firsthand that through hard work and perseverance, a small business can become the lifeblood that fuels a family. After college, she spent over 20 years leading technical teams in Fortune 500 companies before totally changing the trajectory of her career in her 40s to open her own business and join the faculty at her alma mater. As a mother of 2 who spends a lot of time working from carpool, she is officially living out her childhood dream of being a taxi driver, just like her mother. Wendy, this is the crux of it. Wendy believes that her experience and her engineering mindset, with that, she can help people find their place at work and thrive once they get there. She works with people who want to think about work differently by speaking to employee audiences and providing consulting to corporate leaders looking to drive retention and productivity. So let's take this as a launch pad and start into what it means to reimagine your work. You went from a very structured, very boxed in position and you laid out a plan. You decided that you were going to go to flat. You had a certain schedule that you wanted. You promoted. You gave it to your manager, if I recall, and said, "This is how I want to do this." And you were given time to implement it, and you implemented it. If you could see on your screen, like I can see on my screen, Wendy's ability to run a timeline, you would be impressed. But you kicked ass with it, and so you were given the opportunity to make your life and your work balance out, right?
It
Uh,
was, yeah.
and so that became the impetus for even more success and reimagining your work, and then taking this story and turning it into a way to connect with others. Tell me
Absolutely.
more.
Yeah. So, after college, as you said, I did all the things an engineer was supposed to do. I had a very successful 20 plus year career running organizations inside of Fortune 500 companies. I've worked in R&D. I worked in manufacturing strategy, supply chain strategy. I was running a program management office, a PMO. I have worked on some of the biggest corporate projects for the companies that I worked for. And in January of 2022, as lots of companies do, there was a big restructure. And effective immediately, I didn't have a job. One of the best blessings was that it was coming out of the pandemic. So I got laid off in my pajamas, right? I was on Zoom when I got the call. So if you're going to get laid off, at least at home and comfortable is a great way to do it. But not only did I get laid off, the boss that had to lay me off had been laid off, and the head of human resources who was in the call had also lost his job. So literally all of us sitting on the call were unemployed. That should have been a day that just absolutely shook my life. Right? At that point, I was a mom with a middle schooler and an elementary schooler. I was in my early 40s. Like, I wasn't ready to retire, but I also wasn't young and up and coming. So where was I in this mid-career, midlife state, right? And I was so blessed to have friends and family that gave me the best advice. And their advice was, just take the opportunity to breathe. Just take the opportunity to breathe. And at that moment, in some conversations with my husband, I said, I think I need to get another job. I mean, clearly we're just not independently wealthy. Maybe some of your listeners are. We're not blessed to be independently wealthy. We need money. So he said, why don't you just retire? And I laughed and I said, what do you mean retire? And he said, well, we on road trips, when the kids would have their headphones on and be watching a movie, we would dream about our future. And when he retires, he very much wants to play golf and live by the ocean. And when I retired, I wanted to live in his dream as long as it was close enough to an airport that I could consult. Because I wanted to be able to travel and work. To me, retiring meant walking away from a corporate structure. It didn't mean walking away from continuing to invest in myself and other people. And so he said, your retirement doesn't mean you don't make money. So just do that. And it kind of shook my world, Natalie. I was like, what do I do? What do you mean? Like, what? And so we decided, he said, this is just like putting a house on the market. You can put your house on the market and decide that it is not time to sell. And you can pull your house back off the market and put it back on later. So he said, okay, let's try this consulting thing. If that's what you want to do, let's just try it. You've been given this opportunity with the layoff to try something different. Your momentum has stopped. That work inertia has worse. And he says, and if we do it for 18 months and it's awful, then go get a job. But let's not get a job yet. Oh, and was he right? Oh my gosh. I have pieced together through all the things I loved a way better first retirement than I could have ever imagined. And that's what I call it. I call it my first retirement because I'll retire from this at some point, but I'm not going back to the other way because it didn't meet all my needs. I didn't realize what else was out there. Because you just sort of get in the groove at work. If you work for a company that has a career plan, you just sort of get on the treadmill and you do it. And you jump to the next project because that's what you do. And then you jump to the next opportunity because that's where they need you. Each time I was growing and I was learning and I thought I was happy. If you'd asked me the morning I got laid off, I actually didn't get laid off until about 9:30 in the morning. And I'd had an 8 o'clock call. I was working on something really cool that I really liked at 8 o'clock.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like I was miserable, but wow, what the other side looks like. And that's part of how Reimagine Your Work came around is I grew up in a small business and I didn't realize that I brought that small business mindset to everything that I had done in my career, every choice I had ever made. Not everybody has done that. And so I want to kind of move the curtain back so people who didn't have that upbringing can see what it means to run a small business, not because you ever need to be an entrepreneur, but because that mindset, being able to think of yourself as a product, being able to realize that you are a company that sells you, even if who you're selling yourself to is a Fortune 100 company on a W-2, you've got to manage your brand and your product and your R&D so that you're evergreen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, your husband's a rock star. I think
I am. Yes, he's amazing.
To give you to have a partner in life, period, right? That is so supportive and says, sweetie, you're a rock star and we're rock stars together and you're going to make this work and go for it. And to be able to think out loud with you on that. I'm hearing like you use the word midlife shakeup. And to me, that midlife shakeup could come in the form of a layoff. It could come in a form of a desire to leap.
For sure.
And that you don't see it coming or you dream about it coming and you don't know, you're scared or you're worried, you're in the dark about what it's going to take and you don't know where to start kind of thing. But regardless, where you're headed is this new found kind of frontier of having a different experience with your career. And that different experience is less about the company and more about you, which is, I think, generationally, like if we look at conditioning and where we came, right? I mean, I can think of my grandfather with the gold watch, and I think we talked about the first go round, that managing yourself and running your career like a small business is a complete shift in a mindset, because we're just cogs in a wheel. Like we're just right. So how am I even supposed to even start running my own? Like, do I even have the room? How do I get my brain around that? So I've got a couple directions that I want to go into with you. But first, let's put the umbrella on. You talk about the trick to running your own career is running it like it's a small business and you are the product.
You are the product and the CEO. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. And
yeah.
I want to think about, so put me in my own driver's seat and coach me on what that looks like.
So if we can start with this framework that you already run a business and your business is to sell your product. That's what businesses do. They sell products. The product you sell just also happens to be you. What a great spot for a leader to be in. If every CEO had 100% control over their products, of course they would be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how business works. But it does work in this instance for careers. So you run this company. As the start of the company, you have to have a strategic vision for what you want your company to do.
Mm-hmm.
For you, that's career planning. So what jobs do you want? What experiences do you want? What value are you extracting and what value are you providing to your customer?
Mm-hmm.
And the customer is whoever pays you. So that makes sense if we're at a bakery. The customer is the person buying the pastry, right? That makes sense at Target. I'm clear the customer when I'm in Target. Nobody has any question as to who's the customer when I walk in with the shopping cart at Target and go through the checkout line. But when we think about a career, our customers, whoever pays us, if that's our salaried company, that's who, the name on the top of the W-2. If I'm a 1099 employee, it's where am I getting that? If I am driving for Uber, Uber is the customer of me. The person getting in the car is the customer of Uber.
Right.
right? So I have to figure out, how do I position myself? What is the brand that I want to show for myself? So we think about, how do we come across to people? What features and benefits do I as a product need so that the hiring manager wants to pick me?
Yes.
In a lot of my keynote talks, I use the story of Velveeta cheese. So I'm going to indulge you in a very short story, of which I hope your listeners decide not to turn off. So this is a story about two detectives and Velveeta cheese. So in our house, I cook, but my husband does the grocery shopping. He loves grocery shopping. It is one of the things I love the most about him, because I do not love grocery shopping. But that sometimes means that I put an ingredient on the list that he doesn't know what it is, right? So there he is in the grocery store. He's got his list and he's crossed everything off and his cart's full, and he sees on there Velveeta cheese. This is a true story, one winter. And so he does what most people would do, which is head towards the dairy section of the grocery store, because that's where cheese is sold, right? But he knows that's important. I didn't just say cheese, I said Velveeta. And so now he is searching the cheese section for Velveeta cheese. Some of your listeners will know that this is not going to work, because Velveeta is shelf stable, so it doesn't need that fancy, expensive part of the grocery store.
Right.
But if you don't know that, you're in a big trouble. So he does not do what I would do. I would have bought several different kinds of cheese, brought it home and said, they were out of Velveeta. I got you all of these, right? As a matter of fact, that's what most recruiters do. The hiring manager gives them a list of very specific skills, and the recruiter goes, I didn't find that unicorn, but I brought you all these candidates.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
They say, I brought you all of these.
Yep.
Any of these going to work?
Yep.
But my husband is not a quitter. So he found a woman he later described to me as, I don't know, like a mom who was also shopping. And he pushed his cart up and said, can you help me? I need Velveeta cheese. And she said, well, you're not going to find it here. And he said, excellent. Where will I find it? And she said, I have no idea. And lucky for me, she is also no quitter. They spent the next 5 minutes going down and up every aisle trying to find it. They eventually found it on the end cap, because the grocery store didn't know where to put it either. You know, that end cap where they sell like batteries and seasonal items and stuff on clearance. That's where they found the Velveeta cheese, because the store didn't know either. But he came home and he was very excited. That's important, because the ooey gooey macaroni and cheese that my family needs to eat and loves needs Velveeta. Like, it's the secret ingredient, right? My husband knew that that brand was important, because I had communicated that to him. So if you want to make your brand so important that he felt like he could not come home without it, now you have provided a line for that recruiter, because you are going to be all of those things. And that recruiter is going to be like, I need somebody that meets all these, and you are the one. I'm going to go search you out, because I've heard about you and I know this is how it's going to work. So you need to become someone's secret ingredient. That's how this kind of brand works. But it only works if you are constantly managing it, right? It also only works if you manage your features and benefits. Because part of what makes that cheese so ooey and gooey is probably also what makes it shelf stable, and that it's a cheese product and not just cheese, right? So what are you doing in your career to make sure that you have the right features and benefits so that you meet all of that list? If I had been shopping for cheese that day and I couldn't find the Velveeta, I knew what the exact things I would need to alter the recipe. I could have found other cheese products. I could have probably used some cream cheese and something else and been able to make it work. That's what hiring managers are doing, unless you are setting yourself up for success. And unlike the Velveeta, you get to decide where you are placed, right? It's not a store stocking the shelves. So if you know that somebody's looking for cheese and you happen to be the best cheese, get yourself in where the cheese is sold. Get yourself in the right position. From a brand management and a marketing standpoint, be where those recruiters are looking, so that not only do they find you, but they find you and only you, because you are exactly what they are looking for. That's how this Reimagine works. Find your favorite product, figure out what is happening with that favorite product that makes it so, and how do I learn from it, and put it on me.
Mm-hmm. I like how I love this. I love this concept of, so, I mean, a lot of folks struggle with the concept of themselves as their own brand and what it means to market yourself as a brand. That I and they don't spend enough time thinking about it. This is a fantastic way to frame this up, and I love it. I think it applies in the career with a recruiter, with applications, with, like the slew of opportunities that are out there that are posted, and even those that are not posted. You see a company that you want to go work for and you decide, how do I stand out, and I'm in front of them, in my own special way. I think it also, if I'm thinking about a human going out on their own and creating their own business and not knowing how to position themselves and how to compete, it is to say, where on the shelf do I want to be, right? And how do I differentiate myself? To take it even further, I look at some of these products that come out and I'm like, how in the living hell is there room for another flavored popcorn? But somehow these folks got themselves in front of the right people at Sam's Club, or the buyers at Sam's Club, for a massive truck of fill in the blank pickle flavored popcorn. Seriously? But
Somebody did it.
And that feature benefit and that brand hit a spot that they worked their asses off to figure out, where is that spot? How am I going to hit it? And how am I going to position the brand in direct aim of that spot?
Absolutely. So in Reimagine Your Work, I have a chapter on just you as the product, and I have an online challenge that I give to the reader. Cool. And that is to use your network to figure out what your current brand is. Because if you're trying to figure out how you're going to be your own business at a company or your own business as an entrepreneur, you got to know what your baseline is. You got to know what you're already good at. What are people thinking at? So with that, I have a set of 3 questions that I want people to ask their network. If you're really brave, use social media, because you can get a lot really fast. I did this on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and I will tell you that you get different answers, even from the same person, with whatever platform they're engaged in.
Yeah.
So when they're on Facebook, they're thinking one thing. When they're on LinkedIn, they're thinking something else. So the broader you can ask this question, the more data you get. I'm an engineer. Data is my life. So how can you get a lot of data fast? You can get a lot of data fast using social media. If that terrifies you, just start with your family. Start with your family and friends and ask them over dinner tonight. Like, it's all good. So here are the 3 questions. The first question is, what one word would you use to describe me? If you're going to do this, you ask this question first because it's a really low barrier to entry, right? If I'm doing it on social media and I see that and I'm like, scroll, like I don't have anything nice to say. Most people are not that you're connected to. Like, we're not doing this out on TikTok with the world. We're doing this with people we're connected to. But if they see it, something will pop in their head. And one word is a low barrier to entry. You can just type it in. Nice, loud, enthusiastic, generous. Like, it doesn't matter, right? So you can get a lot of data real fast because people are like, oh, I'll help. Sure. That sounds like fun. I'll do that. The second question is, what am I best at? This one is a little higher barrier to entry, but this is what people are recommending you for when you're not in the room. So you start to see, what do people say about me when I'm not there? And you'll notice that question is very strategically written as a positive. It doesn't say, just say anything about me. It's what am I best at? So I am hedging it with, you're only giving me positives. You're only giving me positives. So if you're scared that you're going to get some ugly stuff, what am I best at? Being a jerk is not something somebody's going to put.
Right.
And with that, you can start to see, what are the things that people already think about? So if you are going out on your own for business, this might be something you want to start considering monetizing. The things people are already recommending you for, things they think you excel at. And then the last one is going to sound really weird. It is, what is your favorite memory with me?
Okay.
If you're doing it on social media, you may see that the responses drop because depending on the platform, they might not want to be associated with this silly memory because your favorite one is usually something really ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But what they will do is they will private message you, they will text you, they will DM you, they will email you because it is engaged a different part of their brain, right? We've engaged the emotional part of their brain. And whatever they say the memory is, you have now rekindled a relationship that you may not have talked to somebody in years. Well, there is no better way to help with your career development than to keep your network evergreen. And if you haven't talked to people in a long time, sometimes it can be real awkward to be like, hey, I'm on a job hunt. But if you just throw out there, what's your favorite memory with me? And then they say it, now you've got a reason to talk with them.
Yeah. I love that.
So all you're doing is creating this ability to bump into somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are scared to do it, just say that your career coach told you to do it. Nobody has to know that's me.
Wendy told me to do it.
Yeah, I had somebody say, she posted it on LinkedIn and she said, Wendy, I hope you don't mind. I said that my executive coach told me. And I said, well, I don't claim to be an executive coach. And she says, yes, but I'm an executive and you coached me. So we're counting it. I was like, perfect. Whatever you want to say, right?
Today you have been deemed executive coach.
For this moment, you were an executive coach. You could say I was reading this book or I listened to this podcast. As a matter of fact, it'd be a great way if you love this podcast to highlight it with your friends. I was listening to Thinking Out Loud and this was the tip. So I'm throwing it out there on social media, right? Whatever makes you feel better about it, but get the data. Get the data because then your likelihood of success is so much higher. If nobody thinks of you as a baker, opening up a bakery is going to be a much steeper hill than if everybody in your life is like, oh my gosh, you make the best cakes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think too, don't you think that, I mean, and you say this in your book around, making an investment in yourself. If you're running any type of business, whether it's whether it's for another company or it's for yourself, there is all of this. I mean, we want things so quick and we want these quick fixes and we want things to just work, but we have to be able to invest time and we have to be, I think we have to be vulnerable around we do. Why am I I'm being wishy-washy about this. We have to be open to criticism and constructive feedback and to say your product sucks. I mean, nobody's going to say, I don't think anybody will say anything negative, but you have to, let's say you get crickets on things, you have to be able to read that as maybe I'm not being clear with who I am I'm not the baker I thought that I was, right? And and take that in as some feedback that actually means something. And I love this exercise. It requires you to put yourself out there and it does take some bravery. Most folks are going to be pleasant and give you, and if they're not, or there's a memory that they have a favorite that probably, doesn't need to see the light of day because maybe it's rated R, they'll DM you, right?
That's right. They'll just DM you. I will say, just like you said, if you get this feedback and there is stuff that is missing. So let's say that you thought you were a collaborative person.
Right.
You thought you were great at that. And out of all of this feedback you get, nobody says you're collaborative. Maybe take a moment and reflect. Am I collaborative?
Right.
Maybe go test it. So one of the other things I encourage everybody to have is their personal board of directors. A successful company has a board of directors. They have people who help guide. You should have that as well. And when you get this feedback, you should be asking it and pressure testing it with that board of directors to say, is this true? Because if you don't, you are no different than the emperor in his new clothes. Right? You have to have people who are willing to speak truth to you. And so you take this data and you're like, nobody said collaborative. And I feel like I'm super collaborative. You need to be able to be like, I'm sorry, Natalie, no, you are not collaborative. You think you are, but you steamroll people, right? That is an important thing for you to know. The other place to look is if you only get positive feedback, which is possible in this exercise, go back and look at every performance review you've ever gotten. Because as a people leader, I will tell you, I was required to put development opportunities every year for all of my team.
Yep. Yep.
There are some things that I got feedback on that I said, that's interesting. I'm not going to do anything about it. From the time I entered corporate America until the time I left corporate America, across 20 plus performance reviews, at least 90% of them said I was loud and I had high energy. As a negative.
As negatives.
Well, because I worked in engineering. Let's think about what that architect looks like, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Guess what? When I stand in front of 150 juniors from college and have to command their attention for an hour, my feedback now says one of the most interesting lecturers on campus.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was negative in one instance. I chose not to change it. It wasn't hurting me. Right. And now I leverage it. I leverage it to be able to talk to people on podcasts. There's just not that many engineers that have my personality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There just aren't.
Yeah. It does. What flashed into my head earlier was the 360 review. And early on, I was a young manager and I had a team of it was tiny. It was only like 7 or 8 of us. So, I mean, the 360, right? You're going to like the anonymity of 7 folks is, not really going to be that great. But then if I recall, you get friends, you get family, you get different types of people in your life, and you send them the questionnaire, right? And the point of my story is that I had a young woman, and we are similar in age and were then, and she was, her feedback broke my heart. It did. It broke my heart. I was totally blown away at how I'm trying to bring up the exact words, and I probably should have thought about it before I brought it up, but I was mortified. It was unintentional. So the concept of, being brave and being open to constructive criticism, it's not to say that you're intentionally not collaborative or you're intentionally, cut people off and interrupt. You may be very excited and you need, so how do I work on it? I need to, work on my listening skills. I need to listen to hear instead of respond, like fill in the blanks. And I remember being just so grateful that the feedback came and that I was given an opportunity to connect with her and rework our relationship. So total sidebar, but becoming that then going back to, using this metaphor of ourselves as product, it made me that much better, made me a lot more shelf stable.
Let's sure put
it that way.
Yeah, it made you a lot more marketable. Every product has a bug somewhere, right? Every product has a weakness. And companies spend a lot of time and money in R&D on the next generation of their products.
Mm-hmm.
In order to stay evergreen, they are constantly evolving. If we all still had the first iPhone, how different would the world be? It's okay. We all accept that we're going to get an iOS update. We all accept that there'll be the next generation that has these new features and addresses some of the issues that we have with the earlier models. Give ourselves that same grace.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the same product that was introduced. I mean, maybe if you're 20, but if you're not 20, you are not the same product that was introduced right out of college or right out of high school. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to become version 2.0 and 3.0 of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you didn't, who would want you anyway?
Yep. Well,
thinking about yourself as a product really gives you the ability to grow from that feedback because products grow and evolve.
Yeah. in a midlife shakeup where you're not quite sure what your product is and you're not quite sure, how you're going to market yourself, or you're looking at a complete overhaul and you're like, I don't like how I've been marketing myself and I want to take this in a whole different direction. So, using your framework of, creating this strategic plan as you would for a business, the business of you, um, so that you see your gaps and you see what it's going to take to go to market with this let's say you're pursuing a passion in consulting, you're pursuing a passion in speaking or what have you, and taking yourself on a road show. What do you need to shore up and what skills do you need to have to make you that much more marketable and ready for market? I really like this. I really appreciate this thinking.
Yeah, I think the strategic plan framework gives you the ability to make changes over time, because a strategic plan is not a tactical plan. I didn't say create a tactical plan. What am I going to do in the next 90 days? I said a strategic plan. And a strategic plan gives you the time and the space to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to have the courage to put it on paper, first of all.
Yeah.
I always say write a strategic plan and write it in pencil, right? Don't be using a Sharpie, because you're going to want to change it. Because by the way, every strategic plan gets edited. I don't know of any company that ever makes it to the end of their strategic plan. It's a 3 to 5 year plan that they update every 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what you can do with your career. You can say, where do I want to be in 3 to 5 years? And what do I do to get there?
Mm-hmm.
When I talk to undergrads as they are getting ready to leave and go out to be engineers, this is the first time in their life that there's not a plan. K-12 is very linear. You just do kindergarten and then first grade and then second grade, and we know what you need to do. When you get into college, there's a lot more freedom, but we still have those course catalogs, like what classes you have to take, generally in what sort of order they need to be taken based on their level and their prerequisites. And you know what success looks like. It's completing this checklist and getting my degree. But the minute you leave that in educational environment, now what does success look like and what does my plan look like is really hard. So I spend a lot of my time talking to students about this idea of a strategic plan. And when I talk to them, I don't use strategic plan because they're not in the workforce yet. But I use this idea of creating their own course catalog. So for any of your listeners who are younger or maybe trying to advise somebody in a mentoring relationship, I encourage them to go look at jobs that they are not yet qualified for. So as about to graduate, they should be looking for entry-level jobs, but I encourage them to go look at jobs that say they require 3 to 5 years of experience, not because they are going to apply for those jobs. As a matter of fact, they should not apply for those jobs. Let's just make it really clear. Do not apply for jobs that you do not meet any of the criteria for.
Right.
Right? Like, let's just say that. But if they go find, and I assign them homework of 10, go find 10 jobs that require 3 to 5 years more experience than you have, in their case, 0. And look at what those jobs are and say, these are ones I like. So find 10 that you like, that you're like, oh, 5 years from now, I would love to do that. That sounds really interesting. Now go look at what are the requirements to get that job. And if you have gotten 10 jobs you like, each of them has, 7 to 15 requirements. Now you've got like 70 to 150 data points of what you need to do in the next 3 years. Do you need to be managing teams? Do you need to be getting technical depth in a particular area? Do you need an advanced degree? Now you can start to build it out. That's really just a strategic plan, but for somebody who hasn't done that. So for any of your listeners that don't have that framework of strategic plan, just think about, put a roadmap together of what do I want to be doing in the future, dreaming of it. For me, I had been dreaming about what I wanted to do 7 years in the future. I wanted to retire 7 years in the future from 8 years in the future from when I got laid off. Sorry, I did the math wrong. 8 years in the future. I'd been dreaming about that. So the day I got laid off, I didn't have to say, what do I want to do later? I could just say, is there any way I can accelerate that 8-year plan? Can I just bring it forward? What can we do now? Because I was already dreaming. So anybody who's not dreaming about what the next job is, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
The next job could be a promotion in your own company. It could be moving out. You don't have to tell people your dreams. I dream lots of stuff that I don't tell anybody. But if you're having those dreams and you're starting to think about this strategically, you are now in control of your destiny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if somebody says this job opens up, even in your own company, you can pressure test it against where you want to be in 3 to 5 years and decide if it's a good move for you.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe it's a good move because you still just need the benefits.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a good move because it gives you features and skills that allow you to check off another box towards that next job.
Mm-hmm. And if you are a listener, there's so many other ways this can be applied too that I would encourage people to think about. And that is, there's young people who see that horizon seems it's pretty far out there. So let me backtrack into or back myself into what I want to accomplish getting out there. Second application is you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, and you say, I don't want to be fill in the blank, a teacher any longer. I don't want to be in corporate America. This is what I want to do, but I've got I'm going to do this in 5 years and make an action plan because 5 years, good gravy, is not that long.
It is not.
It's
It is
not
super
that
fast.
small.
We
And
are almost 5 years since the start of the pandemic.
That's insanity to me. And thank you to the pandemic that hyper just accelerated all of the learning opportunities and the courses, the online courses for $17.99. Like even if you just want to dabble and you want to go see if there's something else out there that, that you could find fulfillment in. And then another application that just sprang through my brain is find yourself a mentor that thinks like Wendy does, that is if you are at a company, a manager that thinks like, and one of my dear friends, when she brings on new people into entry level, she talks about the 5-year plan. You don't have to be here in 5 years. Who do you want to be as a human being? Is it here? Is it elsewhere? Let me help you get there. And find a mentor and find someone who invests in you and helps you realize the importance of investing in yourself and the strategic plan and this course catalog of your life. I think that's great, right?
Yeah, if you are a people leader and you are scared to talk to your team about what is 5 years from now for them because you think it means you're going to lose them, I would just like to tell you that if you're not having that conversation with them, the chances of you losing them are much higher.
Yeah.
Right? You are going to lose them because you're not having these conversations. They don't feel invested in. They don't feel like you understand
Amen.
them. They don't feel like you care about them as a whole person.
Amen.
You are more likely to lose them not having the conversation than having the conversation.
Yep.
Because I know that's why a lot of managers don't want to do it. They don't want, I don't want them to dream about not working here. Oh, don't worry. They're dreaming about not working.
Oh, yeah. Whether you
don't you worry.
We're humans, right?
That's right. That's right. And if you aren't talking about not working there with them, their friends are. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
And they're talking about you.
Yeah.
So you know.
And if they're good at their jobs, they're being looked at. They're out there networking and they're doing their thing. Yeah. I mean,
but they want to work for a manager or a leader who wants to pour into them, who is invested in them as a human. You are more likely to retain them because you had the conversation, because they know that you want what's best for them. Yep. Yeah.
So let me recap really fast. We just dug into the concept of reimagine your work and the reimagining of yourself as your own product, managing your career like it's your business. You are also the author of Making Flex Work, and you're the founder of Engineering Leadership Solutions, where all of these books and your brain is that's your digital storefront. Are you working on anything in particular right now? You've got other books up your sleeve. You're teaching. Tell me what you're up to, and if there's any plugs on special projects you want to make.
So, over the summer, I did collaborate with 14 other authors on a book called When Work Works.
That's right.
Yep. So it is a super eclectic group of authors, spanning from spiritual and religious perspectives through very corporate perspectives and everything in between. And in there, my chapter is around hybrid work and how to make
Nice.
hybrid work effective. What are the things leaders need to look at? That is available on Amazon, and my chapter is available for free on my website. So at engineeringleadershipsolutions.com, you could read my chapter for free, totally available to download. You don't have to buy the whole book if you don't want, but the whole book is also very interesting. Right?
Yeah.
I said when I started writing Making Flex Work that I thought there were 3 books.
Hmm.
I don't think the third one is ready yet. And I say that because from an audience standpoint, Making Flex Work, I was able to talk to the younger me.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to talk to the younger me and say, look, this is a way that you can be successful. Because when I was that younger me, I was drowning and I did not feel successful.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote Reimagine Your Work, it was really to pull back that curtain, right? It was to say, you know what? I've done this through a career. I've taken this huge pivot. I've come out on the other side of it. Let me show you that it's not so scary. And this is why it wasn't scary. Let me just take that fear away, especially in a time where so many people are seeing that transition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The third one, I think it is going to be a piece of how it's going to piece together all of the different leadership experiences that I have had throughout my career. And I don't know that I'm going to write it alone because my career has not been alone, right? So I don't know what that third one looks like. It's maybe a 2025 project. It's on my dream list to start working on in 2025, but I've got to make sure I understand how will it bring a reader value. I don't want to write a book just to write a book, right? I want to write a book that will bring value to the one who is going to invest the time to read it. But I think it will be focused on leadership. And I hope that when it appears, you will have me on to talk about it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Part 3 with Wendy. Hashtag something. We got to come up with something. Part 3
Something.
with Wendy. Yes. I love it. You are in Metro Atlanta. You have, if I remember, it's the Rolling Circus
I
that
do.
you travel with. Is everybody intact on your end and feeling good about coming into winter?
We are. As a matter of fact, the Rolling Circus, for the people that did not listen to the previous episode, that is my household network. We actually have 2 houses next door to each other. So my husband and my 2 children and I live in one house, and my mother and my grandmother live in the house next door. And at the time of this recording, it is 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. We have dinner plans at 5:30 to go out and get beer and wings as a whole rolling circus, which means my 4 will go over next door, load into the SUV with the other 2 crazy ladies, and go out to dinner because it's Friday night. That's what we do.
I love that. I love it. That's great. Thank you for coming back around and piping in with me and thinking out loud with me and being so committed to your calling and just being passionate about what you do to the point where you're able to empower others. And it is very much a gift that you bring to the world, and I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for any of your listeners, the activity that we talked about, the exercises, those are all free on the website. I am a one-woman show here. So if you go to makingflexwork.com, reimagineyourwork.com, or engineeringleadershipsolutions.com, whichever one you remember, they all go to the same place and they all have all the resources.
Yeah, very cool. And I'll put everything in the show notes. I love the 3 questions, the chapter, and just in general, if there's a calling to actually work with you, to be in touch with you directly. So, awesome. Thank you. And I want to thank folks for listening in, for thinking out loud with me, and today's return guest. It's an honor to have spent some extra time and love with Wendy Cocke out of Atlanta, Georgia. And I know that you have a ton of different opportunities to spend your time. And so that makes me super honored that you would choose to listen in with us today. Until we visit again, I hope that you'll go live with love and intention. And please, please, please don't let anybody fuck with your flow. Big hugs, big love. Bye, friends.